She's a PhD student. She's from Verona, and this time is from Massimo Venturali lab, at least one over two. She will present something about upper limb neuromuscular fatigue in early stage of Parkinson's disease, central versus peripheral contributions. Push the button. This one is only for pointing. Yeah, sorry. Stage is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Martina MENDO. I'm a PhD student from Verona, and I'm also a neuropsychologist. And today I want to talk about the topic of my PhD, the early stage of Parkinson's disease and neuromuscular fatigue. Parkinson is a neurodegenerative disease characterized by unilateral onset, and the perceived fatigue is one of the most impact symptoms in the quality of life in this case of patients, and it's referred to the neuromuscular fatigue. In the previous literature, all is known about the lower part of the body and little is known about the upper limbs. And for this reason, the aims of our study is evaluate the effect of neuromuscular fatigue in the upper limbs in these patients in compared to the healthy control, considering both sides. And also investigate the interaction between the peripheral and the central components in the neuromuscular fatigue. We expect that there is a higher development and a faster development of neuromuscular fatigue in patients in compared to the healthy control, and also that there is a difference between the more affected and the less affected limb in the upper limb. To do this, we enroll 12 patients and 6 healthy control. In each group perform 3 sessions. In the first day there is the familiarization. In the day 2 there is the evaluation of the right limb and also the more impacted limb in the patients. And in the day 3 there is the evaluation of the right limb. In the figure below we can see the setup used to assess the neuromuscular fatigue in the upper limb. We use the transcranial magnetic stimulation and the stimulation of the plexus nerve to assess the central fatigue, and we use the stimulation through the motor point through the biceps to assess the central fatigue. Force and all the electromyography activity were recorded in the real time. The evaluation protocol consists in a pre-assessment evaluation to assess the neuromuscular fatigue, with the stimulation of the motor point during a maximal voluntary contraction, and then a stimulation through the TMS and the peripheral nerve stimulation during a maximal voluntary contraction, and then the TMS stimulation and the nerve stimulation through the 20% of MVC. Neuromuscular fatigue was then reassessed after 1 minute of fatiguing task at 30% of MVC, and then the evaluation post. In the evaluation post, we want to assess the performance fatigability after a time to task failure at 30% of MVC. Now, also the controls were matched to the patients, were matched by age, by physical characteristics, and by the dominance. Now, moving on to the results. In this case, we can see the decline of maximal force between the two groups, Parkinson and healthy control. From the statistic point of view, there is no significant difference between Parkinson and healthy control, and there is just a time effect. But if we focus on this graph, we can see that there is a higher decline in the force after 1 minute of fatiguing task, and there is a clear difference between the more impacted and the less affected limb. And also we can see that there is a difference in the performance fatigability after time to task failure in the two limbs. And this trend is different in the healthy control. Okay. Now we can see the results about the central component. And assessed by voluntary activation, and also in this case there is no significant difference between the two groups, but there is a clear decline in voluntary activation in patients with Parkinson's disease after 1 minute, and in this case also after a time to task failure in compared to the healthy control. And now we can see another component of the central component, the results about the TMS. But in this case, there is no difference in statistically difference, but also the graphs are quite similar, but this is due to the high variability in the TMS results and also in the high variability between the subjects. In conclusion, we can see the results about the peripheral components assessed through resting twitch. And there is no significant difference between Parkinson and healthy control, and also in this case the results are quite similar. In fact, we can see that after 1 minute there is no difference between the two limbs in patients, and also after a time to task failure. So we can see that a central component is more affected than peripheral components in this patient, and this is in line with this neurodegenerative disease. So, our hypothesis from the statistical point of view seems to be not confirmed, but there is a trend through the significability that highlight how patients develop greater and faster fatigue than healthy control, and also that seems to be a clear difference between the more affected and the less affected upper limb. And also that the central component, the neuromuscular fatigue, seems to be more impacted than peripheral components. So, in conclusion, Parkinson and healthy control exhibit a similar fatigue pattern over time, preserving fatigue dynamics in the early stage of the disease. And this is in line with the previous literature about the lower limb, and this is a good starting point for the second part of the project, in which we want to do a training with another kind of cerebral stimulation with ITVS and with maximal strain training. And then we want to see the difference in fatigue with a different kind of training. Thank you so much to all my research group and to the groups of Molde University.
Thank you for the presentation. Gasper is working for us, so I will be here instead of him. So thank you for the great presentation, and it's time for the questions.
Thanks for your great talk. That's on universal constants. So you showed that there were differences were mostly in the central part of it. So if you would use a protocol that prioritizes central fatigue, like 5% MBC for like 70 minutes, would you expect the differences between the groups or the limbs to be bigger or not?
Yes, we expect a difference, a big difference between the limbs, and also a big difference between the groups. So in this case, our results are not expected, but the trend go in that direction, in the direction that we expect. So this is a work in progress. So we have really less subject to do this, in particular the healthy control.
From University I think you should be very careful about interpreting non-significant differences as support for the null hypothesis when you only test 12 and 6 people. And I was wondering why you only tested 6 in the control one. It should be relatively easy to get matched numbers between the groups, and then have way more statistical power for significant differences.
I don't listen very well, but I try to imagine the question. Yes, it's not so easy match the control and the participants, but we try, because if control is more, the force is more, also the physical characteristics impact in the performance of fatigue.
Yeah, I think you need more control, so just use a national control number with the Parkinson. Daniel. Quick question, quick answer, right? Fantastic.
Thank you, Daniel Hahn, University Bochum. So at time point 0, you set your voluntary activation to 100%, so for both groups, but usually voluntary activation is rarely really 100%. So I was wondering whether the Parkinson patients per se have lower voluntary activation and how this would affect then the decline in the comparison of the two groups.
Yes, in fact, it's true. But for representing the data about the fatigue, we want to start at 0 point for Parkinson and also for the healthy control. But if we look the graph about the decline of maximal force fatigue, we can see that there is a difference in force between Parkinson and healthy control. Without the absolute value, we do the difference to the percent.
I have to keep the discussion because we are long. I was out 2 minutes and we are 4 minutes late. How is it possible? Yeah, thank you very much.